What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of the Victory Life Legacy Spotlight. Tonight, I have a very special guest, a legendary player, former basketball standout, Ace Custis Hall of Famer, inductee, 757, so many accolades and awards. Also now an assistant coach with the Virginia Tech basketball team. Ace, how you doing, man?
Vic, man, I'm doing well, man. I can't complain.
Yeah.
Actually, you always tell me don't complain because there's no reason to complain. Nobody cares anyway.
No, I feel you, and you and I are cut from the same cloth, man. We hung out a few years ago at one of my Virgo bashes up in DC. It was great to see you and Dee and the wife up there, man. And you've always been a great friend and somebody I love watching play, somebody I love chopping it up with, man. You and I were there pretty much the same time during the rise of Tech basketball and football. So you have some great insight that a lot of people want to hear about, man. So this is your legacy spotlight, man. And we're gonna talk a little bit about how you got to Virginia Tech and the name Ace, how that come about, and all of that stuff, man. So let's start off with where you from, where you grew up in, and were there any other sports, or was it always basketball, man?
First, before we do start, I want to make a correction to you said earlier, assistant coach. I want to clarify. It's a special assistant to the head coach.
Okay.
Uh, in men's basketball Division I, you allowed 3 assistant coaches and the head coach. So I'm one of the staff members on staff that assist Mike Young and the other coaches in making that job a lot easier.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate you for clarifying, man. You guys, there's so many titles now, man. I was talking to Pearson Prelo and Bruce and all the different guys, man, and it's so different from when I play. They have special assistants in this title. So thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no problem. But I'm from the Eastern Shore of Virginia. It's a small peninsula across the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel from Virginia Beach in Norfolk area. We try to say 757, but we're an extension of the 757 across the bridge. Very country town. I grew up Northampton High School, class of 1992. Very proud Yellow Jacket. My rivalry was Nandua High School. And, you had Todd Washington on here before. That was one of the rivalries, and his big brother, T.J. Washington. So, when we chose to go to Virginia Tech, we followed a couple guys to Virginia Tech. We followed Quentin Nottingham and William Boatwright. They were some guys from the Eastern Shore that was ahead of us at Virginia Tech.
Legendary. Boatwright. What was it, 755 pounds? Unbelievable. Just
yeah, unbelievable. I used to go in the weight room and I used to see Boatwright on the squat rack. I seen Todd Washington on the squat rack. And football is a totally different animal. And
yeah.
You said what other sports I played. I played football in the middle school. I tried to go out for high school, and my mom she ended that real quick. She said, "Nope, football is not for me." See, the way my body's set up, I wasn't meant to be taking those kind of hits and that kind of punishment that you guys gave out on the football field. So I tried to stay away from that gridiron.
Yeah.
So I used to see you guys in the weight room when I walked past and hear you guys in there hollering and screaming and throwing weight around like it was nothing. I mean, you had to be special, man, to go in that weight room with the football players.
Yeah, man. And, we are different. We are cut from a different cloth, man. It's always been that way. But, it's interesting, man. The Shore, you're right. It is an extension of the 757, but I know about it because my father for several years preached at the Shore. He preached at Accomack, and I know about Onancock. That was the church he was at, and that's when I met Todd and TJ and Kevin and Kevin and all the other people down there. Very, very family-friendly area. And also, as you mentioned, Todd and TJ, I met them, and then we were friends ever since. Later connected with Todd at the VHSL All-Star Game. So the Shore is where I learned about a lot of great people, great athletes such as yourself, and then also I learned about Scrapple. Had never heard of Scrapple until I got to the Shore, and I was like, what is this? And homemade vanilla ice cream. But again, man, great people, great town. So Ace, talk about your family, man. How did the name come about? And also you mentioned your mom, man. Talk about their influence on you and just growing up on the Shore because, you guys are kind of in between Newport News, Hampton, Smithfield, the peninsula, but also Ocean City. And just talk about your childhood and also your parents, your family life, and what was it like growing up on the Shore?
Yes, being down on the lower part of the Eastern Shore, you have the Eastern Shore of Virginia, you have the Eastern Shore of Maryland. So we was right at the tip, right down by the Chesapeake Bay Bridge. If you go further north, you would go into Eastern Shore of Maryland. So we was kind of in between 757 Tidewater and Eastern Shore, Maryland, Salisbury area. Um, Very close-knit family, close-knit uh, friends and extensions on the Eastern Shore. My mom was my best friend. She's my everything. Um, when I was growing up, my mom was my biggest fan on the court. She was my disciplinarian off the court. I respected her to the utmost. And growing up, she always told me, because I wanted to leave the Eastern Shore because I thought I wasn't going to have the opportunity to get seen by college recruiters on the Eastern Shore. And she told me if I was good enough, they would find me. So I wanted to move to Camden, New Jersey with my aunt. And she said, no, you're going to stay on the Eastern Shore. And if you're good, like I said before, they will come and find you here. I ended up playing with Boo Williams in the summer league. And that's when I was getting noticed by college recruiters. And that's when it all finally started for me. But on the Eastern Shore, I was pretty much always around my grandfather. My grandfather was like a father figure to me. Everywhere he went, I went. He went fishing, I would go fishing. He'd go cut grass. I was on the lawn, riding lawnmowers, weeding at a young age. And he gave me the nickname Ace. He said I was his #1 ace. And it kind of took off when I started playing Little League basketball.
Mm.
I started playing and my coaches, the newspaper, and everyone started saying Ace Custis. No one really knew my real name. They didn't know the government name. And my mom, at first my mom was like, yo, I didn't name you Ace. I named you Adrian. And I was like, nah, my Ace sounds much better because my friends was always joking me saying Adrian was a feminine name and all. So I tried to take Ace and run with that. Then when I went to high school, it started to grow with the newspaper and the recognition that I was getting. And when I came to Virginia Tech, the late Bill Foster was my head coach. And I don't know if he ever knew my real name because no one really addressed me as Adrian.
Yeah.
Everyone called me Adrian.
I don't think until years later, I think Troy Mans or somebody told me that wasn't even your real name. I'm talking about there's probably a lot of people that's gonna watch this that don't know that. Like you've been Ace as long as I remember. On the cover of Sports Illustrated, you were Ace, scoring baskets in Castle Coliseum against UVA, Ace Custis. Pretty crazy, man, how in our culture that those nicknames will stick with you forever. The same way like Allen Iverson to so many of us is Chuck, Bubba Chuck.
Yeah, exactly. When everybody say Allen, I'm like, Allen who? Or they would say, I just know him as Chuck.
Yeah.
Because we played AAU together. So, he was always Chuck to me. Still today, I call him Chuck.
Well, you know what? Interesting, man, because let's talk about that. That's a great segue because, as you know, I've interviewed some very great female and male athletes and coaches and just some great people have been on Legacy Spotlight, you being one of them. You were on a very, very good legendary Boo Williams team before there were 100 AAU teams across the state and across the country. It was, now, I even started an AAU program, but back in the day, it wasn't as formidable. People just pretty much, if you didn't make it, you just had to watch and cheer your homie on. You played on a great AAU team. Talk about the team who was on it, the players, the coaches. I mean, yeah, it's just pretty amazing. Who was on those teams?
It's strange now because, like you said, AAU really has changed. Now, everybody has an AAU team. You have different age levels, starting at the 6 and 7 year olds. They are on AAU, and they play throughout 17 and under. But I played on Boo Williams' travel team, and now it's the select team. But back then, that was the only team I ever played on. I never played AAU growing up. And actually, my high school basketball coach called me into his office one day and asked me, did I want to play with Boo Williams? And I was like, Boo Williams? What is Boo Williams? He was like, it's an opportunity for you to get seen by college coaches on a larger scale. Because on the Eastern Shore, many coaches, college coaches don't come to the Eastern Shore to see talent. So by me playing Boo Williams, it was an opportunity to go and play with some of the 757, as we call it, the best. And my first time going, we was over at Bruton High School, my first practice. I remember it like it was yesterday. Now he got the Boo Williams Sportsplex.
Oh, yeah.
Back then, he big time now. Back then, we practiced at the Bruton High School. When I first walked in, I was like, oh my gosh. I hadn't played against guys like that, like Ed Geff, 6'9", Vashon Ely, 6'9", Delwyn Dillard, uh, Joe Smith, all these guys was up in the gym. And the first series we was running, we was doing some conditioning drills, and then we started doing 3-man lines, and then we started doing a little competitive stuff. And man, I was exerting so much energy trying to keep up with these guys because I hadn't played against talent like that. Every player was talented, and I was out of breath. I mean, I was gasping for air. And Coach Jose pulled me aside and asked me, "Young fellow, are you okay?" I was like, "Yes, coach, I'm fine." He said, "All right, let's go. Let's kick it in." And I was terrified. Nobody knew who I was. I didn't know who they were. I just knew they were some talented guys. And when I got back in the car to go home, I would sleep within 20 minutes en route back to the Eastern Shore, which was an hour and a half away.
Yep, I know. I used to commute that on weekends with my father and mother. Um, so who did you end up playing with on the team? Because I know there was that one team you were on, but just tell everybody watching who ended up being on your team and just some familiar names and where they went on to go on to play college ball at.
Ed Geff went on to play at North Carolina. Vashon Ely went to play at Tulane.
Mhm.
Delwyn Dillard, he came to Virginia Tech with myself.
Mhm.
Allen Iverson went to Georgetown. Tony Rutland went to Wake Forest. And Michael Evans, which was the most talented player on the entire roster that many people don't know about, he ended up going to a JUCO, and for various reasons back then. But I mean, by far, one of the best players I ever seen play live in high school.
Yeah, just naming those guys, and I had Damon Bacot and Tony Rutland on the Legacy Spotlight, and when I interviewed them, they would talk about the battles in practice and the competition, and then later on I had Marseille Brown and Boo Williams. Man, shout out to Boo Williams. He is the godfather of AAU basketball. He created a culture. Even before you guys, he had Alonzo Mourning and Brian Stiff and Kevin Swan, and he created a culture where now you have different AAU organizations trying to emulate, and it's great because truth be told, I'm glad he chose you to be on that team. You earned it because you were that talented. But if you think about it, Ace, given that time frame in the '90s, especially what was going on in our culture and our society, he gave a lot of young men the opportunity to travel the country and also get that exposure that you guys, without even knowing it, it became the golden era of AAU sports, where years later, now you have all these teams, you have people trying to emulate and get teams that consist of the talent that you mentioned, the Michael Evans, the Ace Custis, and then Faisal Abraham, and all those different guys. It's pretty remarkable what you guys were part of, and you were probably just happy to be hooping, right?
Man, I was happy to be on the team. I was happy to hold up the roster and see my name. I remember early on, I wasn't getting much playing time, and I was trying to still prove myself. And I was sitting on the bench beside Percy Ellsworth, that went on a football scholarship at UVA, ended up being drafted and playing in NFL for years with the Giants and Cleveland Browns. And we were sitting on the bench one time, and I was like, "Yo, Percy, man, I'm trying to get in the game." I was anxious then, but I had to wait for my name to be called. I just had to wait for my opportunity, didn't complain. I was just happy to be a part of that team. And when my opportunity came, I just tried to get out there and play hard.
Yeah, man, that's awesome. So with that being said, you had your high school coach mentoring and coaching you, and then you had that great run with that great Boo Williams team. When did it all come together? And what I mean by that question, Ace, is I've had a lot of guys and women on this show, and it's interesting when you're part of your journey, you don't realize where it's leading you sometimes. At that time, compared to you see it now, helping out with Virginia Tech basketball. Now these young men and women understand, okay, in 8th grade, 7th grade, I'm trying to get offers. I want to get looks. Where's my huddle account? And I got Instagram. For us in the '90s and early 2000s, it was not that case. So were you like, okay, I just came back from playing with Mike Evans and Iverson and all these guys. Coach, anybody calling for me? So when did the offers come? And how did that whole process begin for you?
It gave me a lot of confidence. When I went back home to play against some of the guys in my area locally, I had confidence. I never got a big head, but I felt that I belonged and I felt that I could play with anybody in the country because I seen some of the top 100 players. We was playing against those guys, and some of those guys was on my roster. So I felt like I could play with anybody. So the confidence level really took off. But it was my brother that really instilled in me prior to that because he taught me the game of basketball. My brother was killed in a car accident when I was in the 8th grade. And it was him that gave me a ball at a young age and whipped up on me every single day because he was 4 years older than me. So he whipped up on me every single day. He had the size, the strength, and I envied and always wanted to be like him and wanted to be able to beat him one-on-one. I never got that opportunity because he was killed in this car accident. So I was always feeling like I was playing for him as well. And then when I started playing AAU, I felt like I have to get a scholarship because no one in my family, in my immediate family, had went to college.
Yeah.
We had people in my immediate family that went to community colleges, went to the military and such things like that. But I wanted to go to college and I didn't want to have a burden on my mom financially. So every time I stepped on the court, I'm like, I have to get a scholarship. That was my goal every time I stepped on the court. But I never really questioned my coach. I felt if I played well enough and believing in my mom saying the college scouts would finally eventually come, then that was my goal. I remember we played Nansemond River at home. And prior to them coming to Northampton High School, my high school coach had told me that the opposing coach at Nansemond River had told VCU I was a good high school player, but I wasn't good enough to play at the collegiate level.
Wow.
That night I had 42 points. And it was my career high in high school, 42, against Nansemond River at home that night. Because
awesome.
It was motivation.
Yeah.
And then when I started playing with Boo Williams, the scholarship offers were coming in. And I was narrowing it down to the different schools, and it was between Boston College and Virginia Tech.
Hold on, Ace. Boston College?
It was Boston College. I felt that it was an opportunity to go to a big school and play. But then they recruited Donye Abrams, and he was at my position. And I was like, well, I can't compete. You know, I'm not going that far away from home and not knowing if I'm gonna have the opportunity to play. Virginia Tech came and told me that if I come in and play hard, I would have an opportunity to play right away. That kind of sold me. But then they also put the pressure on me because they came to my high school and Coach Ferguson told me, Ace, if you're serious about Virginia Tech, we want you. But we also got another player that's ready to commit right now.
There it is.
He put that pressure on me, and it was a wrap. I told him, Coach, no, say no more. I'm a Hokie.
Really?
That's what I committed when he was in my guidance counselor office that day.
So they want no press conference, no announcement. You didn't have to consult your mom. It was just, I'm making this decision as a man. I'm just going to Tech.
Man, we didn't have cell phones.
No, I'm talking about just, you know, how even back then.
We cell phones. Man, we didn't have cell phones. We didn't have Twitter. We didn't have all that social media that I had outlets that I could say, okay, I'm making an announcement on this day. I shook his hand and said, yo, call Coach Foster. He reached out to Coach Foster and from the guidance counselor's office and told Coach Foster that I had committed. And I called my mom from the guidance counselor's office to her job and told her that I made a decision because she wanted to leave it up to me because she wanted me to live with my decision.
So when you notified your mom after you committed, what was her response? I mean, I know she was happy that you were going on a full scholarship, but at the same time, you know, was she like, okay, you know, what was her response? Take me back to that moment. Like,
I mean, she was like, this is what you want to do? I said, yes. I'm sitting here with Coach Ferguson right now, and I decided I'm gonna go to Virginia Tech. And she said, congratulations, praise the Lord. Our prayers has come true, and let's make the best of it.
Yeah. What a great choice it was, man, because you went to Tech at the right time. It was a perfect storm. You guys created, you know, and set the tone for what we have now. And you know, this is before Tech was now, you know, in the ACC. So you get the Tech. Did you take a visit before you committed?
I came on a visit with Delwyn Dillard, Jimmy Carruth, the chief. He was my host, and he showed us around, showed us a good time. We really enjoyed it, and I had already told Delwyn, this is where I'm going. I'm going to Virginia Tech, and he ended up committing to Virginia Tech as well. And I think that was one of the best decisions I made in my entire life, becoming a Hokie.
Absolutely. Now, take me back there, Ace, even though you and I were at the same time for the viewers, because a lot of people are going to see this, man. And, I don't know about you, but, I grew up in Hampton and Newport News, and you've been on the 7-5, and you've been over there many times. Newport News and Hampton, it's not Queens, it's not DC, but it's not Georgia either. It's urban. It's the peninsula. You have Norfolk and Virginia Beach. For me going to Tech, it was a lot of people were like, wow, are you happy there? But for me, it felt comfortable. I mean, it was the pace I needed. It was a great college town. I enjoyed my visit. I met great people on my visit. And of course, my 5 years there, it was great. But for you, you said you knew it. Like, was it the same thing? Did it feel comfortable for you? It wasn't a culture shock or anything like that?
I actually had came to Virginia Tech in 8th grade. I came on a 4-H trip, and we had all our sessions and everything over in Burris Hall.
Wow.
While I was here, I stayed over in the gym all the time. I was in War Memorial hooping. I was supposed to be at 4-H camp, and I'm in War Memorial hooping.
Oh, War Memorial.
My leader didn't know, but I lived in the gym, and I seen Quentin Nottingham. He was in the gym hooping. Some of the basketball players, and I was in War Memorial looking at those guys like, man, if I ever get the chance, man, I would love to be at this level. Mm-hmm. And when I got here on campus, man, it was just like being at home. I mean, it was open arms, made great friends, and it was never a rivalry between football and basketball. I mean, we was all like brothers. We was one big family. Mm-hmm. And it was just like, I look forward to coming to Virginia Tech, even during the summertime, during the break. I didn't really want to go home because this was like a second home to me.
Yeah, yeah. So, and it was for me. I had the same exact feeling. And I remember those days. Even talking to you now is taking me back. I'm just thinking about those summer nights and seeing you and the fellas and, us going to war when the football players thought they could hoop. And,
yeah.
When you got to Tech, Virginia Tech now, based on what Buzz Williams has done, and then now you have a great coach in Mike Young who is continuing to build, and I love him as a coach. We're going to talk about working with him and everything in a second, but you get to Tech, it's Coach Foster, right?
Yes.
Not Bud Foster, the other Foster.
Yes, the other Foster.
So, Bill Foster. Yeah, Bill Foster. Now let's talk about it, man. Who was there? Because I remember the Jackson twins or brothers or whatever, and Smitty. But when you get there, what conference is in Tech in, and who are you playing? Because at one time, towards the end of your career, you guys take it to new heights. When I remember the game was sold out and it was UMass #1 and y'all were ranked number 10. But I don't want to talk about that just yet. When you get there, what was it like in building the program, and who was on that team with you?
We came in 8 freshmen. It was 8 of us that came in together. Dwayne Archibald, Sean Smith, Damon Waddington, Sean Good, Jim Jackson, Travis Jackson. And we all came in. It was 8 of us, and we were so close-knit. We did everything together. We went to all football games together, all volleyball matches together. We did everything. We was over in Dietrich Dining Hall together, all the parties. I mean, we was inseparable. And then as time went on, other guys transferred.
Yeah.
But the program began to change. Bill Foster really let us play. He was a true, what you call, player's coach. And I tried to sit back and watch him, like, how he carried himself, because I said, if I ever become a coach, I want to be a player's coach, because we had Dean Keener, we had Coach Hussey.
Yeah, Coach Hussey.
Coach Ferguson, and we had Bill Foster, and they had open doors. We can go by and talk any time of the day. And I envied that, because I went to them and I talked to them about any and everything, and they sit down and they talked. They didn't treat me just as a player. They treated me as family. And the team began to grow. And I think the team was successful because we were successful off the court. Yeah. We had no one that was jealous or envious of anyone on the team. we was in it as a common goal, and we played for each other, and we held each other accountable.
Yeah. Hearing those names, man, I still keep in contact with most of those guys, you, D Watt, and I see a lot of y'all, man, are blessed and have families. Some of you guys are coaching, but those were some very good players. And, it's interesting in today's game when you compare, and, sometimes it is where it is. You can't really get caught up in comparing. But you look at what we see now in collegiate sports, in all sports, not just football and basketball, but in a lot of sports, track, the transfer portal, if I'm not playing, I'm out. Or why they keep talking about Ace Custis all the time. I'm the one that hit the free throws, or, I can give this guy 30. You really did. I don't even know if even the fans back then realized how talented Sean Good and D Watt, Damon Watlington were. Like, they were really very, very good guards. Like, I saw it, in the offseason, we were in summer condition, we were in the gym messing around, and just how they could go and how gifted they were. But you mentioned the bond you guys had. It was a brotherhood when I saw y'all. We were all tight, but even just out and about, the basketball team, you guys went everywhere together, man. And it was very obvious when you saw you guys play on the court, man. When you look at those teams and those players you played with, what did you love? You can't name everybody, but what was so fun about playing with just a handful of them? Smitty, the Jackson brothers, D Watt, Sean Good. What do you remember about those guys? I'll even throw in Troy Mans too, because I know he transferred late.
Yes, he transferred in later, but it was the competitiveness that every day we talked so much trash to each other. Good trash talking, nothing disrespectful, that you had to bring your game every single day, every single practice. I mean, I was exhausted leaving practice because we competed so hard, to the point that sometimes in pickup, we would fight.
What?
Yeah, we had a rule, yes. Me and Dwayne Archibald, we used to get into it, like literally throwing fists on the floor, they breaking it up. But then we had a rule. Once we leave the court, no matter what happened, once we go in the locker room, it's forgotten. We go into dinner, we're gonna laugh and joke about it. But tomorrow, when we go between those lines, we back at it again. And I think that really built the trust and respect in each other, because we was all in for it, not for the person named on the back of the shirt. We was playing for the front of the shirt, which was Virginia Tech.
Yeah. And you guys did a great job of it. So I mentioned, a few years later, after Troy Mans comes in, you guys go through some changes, and all of a sudden, man, everything comes together. You guys go on a run where you win the NIT. And, you guys in New York, you actually beat your good friend, my good friend, in the championship in
Faisal Abraham.
Faisal Abraham at Marquette in Madison Square Garden on national TV. Smitty hits those free throws in a great game, which propelled you to the next year. We'll talk about here in a second, when y'all have a great season, a historic season at the time. What was it like, man? I mean, because, again, let's be real. The NIT, people say, well, it's not the NCAA tournament, but you and I both know as former athletes, playing on the collegiate level, playing in a tournament, if you're still playing, you still are a good team. And it's still a championship. And there are a lot of people who never won more than 10 games, coaches and players alike. So I know for us, even in bowl games, it might not have been a BCS bowl at the time, but if it was still a good bowl against a good opponent, we celebrated that win. But in regards to basketball, that NIT run, man, I remember being in Castle and it was rocking, and the game winner. So talk about that NIT season, man.
We came in 8 deep. Some guys transferred out for various reasons, and we had a nucleus. But over time, we needed more. We recruited and brought in other guys. Dave Jackson ended up transferring. That was Jim Jackson's twin brother.
Yep.
He was at UNC Asheville. He ended up transferring here, sitting out a year. We brought in Keith Matthews, Myron Guillory, and Andre Ray. So, and Sean Smoke.
My God, Smoke and Myron Guillory. I remember when they got there. Great people, man. I love Myron.
We brought in some pieces, and it was one of those things that we all was one, and it wasn't like upperclassmen, lowerclassmen. We was one team, and when we felt that we deserved to be in the NCAA tournament that year. And for some reason, we didn't get our name called on selections Sunday. And so we said, let's go ahead and make this NIT run. Let's be the 65th best team in the country.
I like it.
If they don't think we was one of the top 64, we're going to be the 65th best team. And we're going to be ending the season with a winning note. So that was our approach. Every single game, we felt like we had something to prove. Whether it was in Castle or on the road, we played together and we played extremely hard. And I remember we was playing against New Mexico State in order to go to the Final Four in Madison Square Garden. And I got the ball passed to me on the wing. And for some reason, they didn't do a good scouting report because I couldn't shoot. I was not going to shoot the three. So, being unselfish, I passed the ball to the corner. Travis Jackson, big lefty, hit the corner three and put us up. We go down the court, get a stop, and we win the game. And, I blame that on a scout report because they didn't scout me very well. These Custers was not shooting that three ball in college.
Oh, man.
Just trying to play extremely hard. But we went to the Final Four up in New York in Madison Square Garden. We played against Canisius in the first round. And then we played against Marquette in the championship. And I'm glad Sean Smith got fouled with 0.7 seconds instead of me for that. We was down one and they called a timeout, went to the bench, and Sean sit off to the side by himself. Coach Foster was doing his talking. I looked down at Sean and he was just relaxed. He had his head down a little bit. He was thinking about the moment. And I was like, man, I'm glad that's him. Woo. Not saying that I wouldn't have stepped up, but Sean was a better free throw shooter than me. I mean, numbers don't lie.
No, they don't. And it's just hearing you say this, man, just reminds everybody how humble you are, man, because that year, and especially the following year, you got a lot of media coverage. But yet, as a great teammate that you were, you recognize that, number one, that's a pressure moment. Again, don't get it twisted. A lot of people can sit from their couch or even watching this show and be like, oh, yeah, free throws. But free throws at that moment, and everybody was watching. It wasn't just Tech and Marquette fans. That people were watching. I remember where I was when that moment happened, and he nailed them. And you talked also about passing the ball off and to Jackson and him hitting that three and not you. I mean, a lot of guys don't have that humility and awareness to recognize their strengths and weaknesses, and also praising their teammates for composure and courage in the moment. And that's you, Ace, and that's a good thing. That's a great thing. When you look back on playing, I know you had games after that, but a lot of people talk about, I've never been inside as far as on the court, obviously. Actually, I've never been at a game. I've been to New York several times, not at a Knicks game. But how was it just, when you take us back to that moment, was it like playing in what they call the Mecca of basketball? Was it overrated? Was it fun? Or was it,
It was everything they said it was going to be. When we got to New York and we was walking around, I was like, man, this is New York City. First of all, it was my first time ever going to New York.
Mm.
And so when we played Fordham, which was in New York. But that was my first time really being in the city. And when we went down to Madison Square Gardens and we got on the free elevator that took us to, I think it was the 5th floor that the game floor is on. And I walked in and I seen all the names up in the rafters of all the great players. And I'm like, man, this is Madison Square Garden. And I wish I had a cell phone. I could have took some pictures and all back then and posted it as they do today.
Yeah.
But being in that moment, I mean, it was a great experience. Being in that moment with the players, my teammates, the coaches, and the Hokie fans that came up to New York and they showed out. I mean, we was in numbers, we was supported very well.
Yeah.
And to hold that trophy up as the NIT champions, I mean, I don't know what it would be like to hold up the NCAA champion, but to hold up that champion that year was a great feeling. And to do it with those teammates, man, it was wonderful.
Absolutely, man. And, Ace, when you talk about, winning that championship, it really propelled you guys the following season to a great season where all of a sudden you have the football team, making a run to the Sugar Bowl, winning the Big East championship. the basketball team, you guys were ranked, and you and I are both on Twitter. I don't know who this guy that runs this account, but they're showing all these old games on Twitter, and or at least clips of it. And I'm like, man, you guys win some big games in the year following after the NIT win. And then you even had the women's basketball team on a great run. Sports that year in Blacksburg was at an all-time high as far as the expectations, man. And then there was that game where you guys were hosting number one UMass, coached by John Calipari. They had those
Yes.
two guards. I can't pronounce. I never could pronounce their names. Um,
Cordelia?
I can't pronounce it. I hear it and I know it, but they had
Yeah.
those two dynamic guards.
Yes.
And we already mentioned Marcus Camby. And I remember Castle was buzzing the entire week. It was sold out. Every seat, they added seats. I was watching the game in Foxridge. I remember where I was at, man. You guys played them close, but then of course they were very talented and very experienced. But did you ever take a moment to say, wow, you know, I chose this school, me and D Watt and all of us, we came here together, and now we're ranked high in the country with ESPN. This is a marquee matchup. Or were you just in the moment, just playing, focusing on trying to get a dub? Like, did you ever take it all in and enjoy it?
Leading up to that game, we was ranked number 8 in the country, and they was number 1. So it was all kind of hype on ESPN, and you know when they go to the ESPN breaks and and they was talking about the Hokies and UMass going to battle that Saturday. I mean, the hype was all around the game. Coach Foster had all the players go out in front of Castle Coliseum because we had students that was camping out all week. The game was like on a Saturday, and they started camping out like on Tuesday. So we was out there delivering pieces, and it was so cold out there. And they was in those tents, and they was ready, and they was revved up. And to come out in that atmosphere when we came out of Castle, that tunnel that night, I mean, Castle was unbelievable. It was jumping. It was rocking that night. And, you know, I was good friends with Marcus Camby. The night before the game, I stopped by the hotel and hung out with him for a little bit, just to chop it up with him a little while. And, you know, once the game started, I mean, I didn't care about them being ranked number 1, us being number 8. It was time to compete. But they was very talented. Marcus, I think he scored like maybe 30 points that night. I mean, he had a great game. I mean, he was a true pro.
Yes,
I mean, it was a reason why he had such a longevity in the NBA, because he's a true pro. I mean, he was extremely long and athletic and fast and agile. I mean, everything that you want in a great basketball player.
Yeah, that was a great time, and he was a great pro. And you know, again, that's what the A10 days, right? That's when it was the
Yes.
A10, yeah.
My
So
first 2 years we was in the Metro. The last 2 years we were in Atlantic 10.
yeah. Let me ask you a side question about your career, Ace, man, because you did, as I mentioned just a few minutes ago, you that season, because you guys were ranked, and a lot of attention came. I don't know if you remember, I'm sure you do, the Sports Illustrated article on you, and you got a lot of coverage, and you know, they talked about your tattoo and your name and how unselfish you were, but how you were a great defender and rebounder, an opportunistic player. Do you, and again, we have to live with, you know, the what ifs and regrets. I know everybody I've interviewed, even people who don't play sports, you know, that's part of our journey. But do you ever just wonder sometimes, man, if I played now, the way guys are stretch fours and the threes and the open game, similar to what we have in football with the spread offense. Like I always said, man, if my cousin Mike played in the spread offense now, do you ever think, I know, because you're still around the game, you coach it, you're around it, you know, do you ever look at it and say, man, if I played now, I would, you know, be giving guys this? Or is it just, you know, my career what it was, and it was a successful career?
You know, I look back and I always say if I was in this era, how would I play? I couldn't have been a stretch 4 at that time with my style of play because I wasn't really a shooter. I was more of a slasher. But as time went on in my career, I became a 3-point shooter. If I'm on a fast break when I was overseas, I mean, I was averaging 7 to 8 threes a game. So I was really shooting the ball, and I was shooting it well. And today, at the age of 46, I'm shooting the ball really well. And I'm like, I wish I had worked on my game when I was in college and in high school to improve my long distance range. That would have helped me out. I probably could have had a long NBA career if I could really shoot the ball, because I always played with the motor. And when people ask me what was my biggest asset as a player in college, I just said my energy, my motor. I felt no matter how big, how strong you were, that I could outlast you for 40 minutes. I could outwork you for 40 minutes. And I wasn't, like I said, I wasn't a great shooter. I was a hustle guy. I rebounded. I did all the little things. I scored because I played and put myself in the right position to score the basketball within myself. I wasn't trying to be somebody I couldn't be. I wasn't trying to be somebody or emulate somebody that I couldn't emulate that style of play. I was trying to play and be the best version of myself.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I could have still played in today's game because I would have adjusted. I would have found a way. I would have been in the gym on a regular basis. Because when I first came to Virginia Tech, coming from the Eastern Shore, I didn't have a gym that I could go to every day. I was raised on the outdoors, dirt court.
Dirt courts. I played on them over there.
In between games, we would grab the water hose and water the court down to keep the dust down.
Yep.
So when I got to college at Virginia Tech, I used to leave practice and go to War Memorial and play pickup with student body because I loved basketball. When I was frustrated, if I had a bad test or something was going wrong in my day, I would go to the court and just dribble and shoot the basketball because of the sound of the basketball was relieving to me. Yeah. So I would have made the adjustment in today's time. I would have became a shooter in order to be on the court because I felt I just needed to be on the court to make a difference.
You know, Ace, you mentioned, you know, your AAU days and Boo Williams and even the guys that came before you as far as, you know, the Boatwrights and TJ Washingtons. Talk about, though, the Metro days or the A-10 days. You mentioned Marcus Camby. I'm always eager to hear when I ask people, hey, man, tell me some guys when you played in college who you were like, hey, not so much he killed me, but it was tough. He was a beast, or, you know, I couldn't reach. Was it when you guys went to the NCAA and played Kentucky? They were the two-time defending national champs, or who are some players that, you know, and maybe somebody we don't know about, like who are some players you were like, hey, Vic, this guy could go when it came to college?
My hardest matchup in college, I have several. I have several, and a lot of my friends on social media, and some of them might not even know it. But Marcus Camby, for one, I mean, he was talented. He was so long. His length gave me problems. But then a guy that really gave me problems was Junior Burroughs at UVA.
Oh, yes, yes.
Junior gave me real problems because, first of all, I don't understand why Coach Foster matched me up with him. Sean Smith was built more like him.
Mm-hmm.
They played AAU together in North Carolina. Sean knew his game, but Coach put me on him. And I'm like, and Coach didn't believe in double teams.
Oh, he did?
And so I'm on the island on the block.
Wow.
And I'm on skates. He got me just sliding to the basket because I don't have the strength to hold him up. And he just pounded me and put me in the basket. So that was a real hard matchup for me. Brian Grant, that played at Xavier, I think he was a lottery pick, played with Miami Heat for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Those were three guys. Walter McCarty, Antoine Walker,
Kentucky.
Those guys at Kentucky was a tough matchup for me. I could go on with some more guys as well that were tough matchups. And I mean, I could be a while just giving up some names. But those guys right there really stood out during my college career. They gave me problems.
Sure. And they were ballers. And I remember those. I forgot about Junior Burrow. I saw him at a cookout one summer, and I saw him, and he was actually it was at my man Robert Hunt's house in Newport News at a cookout. And I was talking about how big he was. And then I was just like, gosh, man, you know, basketball players, you can tell a football player and a basketball player when you see them.
Well, yes, for sure. Most definitely.
Yeah. When you talk about your career, though, you know, you had a great career at Tech. You know, obviously you're in the Virginia Tech Sports Hall of Fame. When I previewed this interview, man, I probably saw so many comments, just hundreds of them talking about, you know, how great you were as a player and a person. Then you went on to the next level. So what happens, man? You know, I love asking this question because, you know, you have a career and it just seems like it goes by so fast. And next thing you know, like you, like me, and so many guys that were in that position, you're waiting for your name to be called. It's not like high school or middle school or college because you kind of know what's happening next. As soon as your collegiate career is over, it's over. Even if you got your degree, it's like not it's the real world, whether it's professional sports or corporate America. What was it like? Were you hearing things from different teams? Were people working you out? Because I didn't really talk to you at that time. I remember you were getting ready, but I was in my own situation. So, what was it like, man? And what happened? Where'd you end up going? And let's go back to that post Virginia Tech time.
My junior year, I had a pretty good junior year. Statistically, it was one of my best years.
Mm-hmm.
And the rumor was that, I might be leaving for the NBA. I sit down with Coach Foster, and he said, well, if you come back to college, you'll have a chance to increase your stock and maybe go even higher in the draft. So I was like, okay, I'm going to listen to him because I've never been in this situation before. Nobody that I know has been in this situation. So I listened to him. I came back my senior year in the preseason, tore my meniscus in my knee. And then that year we had lost 4 starters. Scouting report was Ace Custis really couldn't shoot the ball, so I was getting double teamed a little bit more than I was the year before. Fast forward, at the end of the year, I didn't know my number was being retired. Actually, when I came out that night for senior night, I just thought I was walking out with my son in my arm. My stepfather and my mom was out on the court, coming out there with me, and then they retired my number. And man, I mean, it was emotional because they recognized that I tried to play the right way. I tried to carry myself the right way, and I played extremely hard every single night. By far, there are a lot of great basketball players that came before me and after me. And I was honored that night to have my number retired, and I still am today. Then it was time to get ready for the NBA draft. I went to different teams. I worked out with some teams, and I talked to my agent, and he was saying, let's just sit tight and see what happens. I had a huge cookout at my house. My mom had my cousins over, and you know how we do at cookouts, man. It's a party. Got the music playing, eating some good food, some home cooked meals and side dishes and all. And then when the draft came, I'm starting seeing all these names that was being drafted. I'm like, okay, all right, late first, because they had predicted before, the year before, me a lot higher. And then now I'm a senior. There is no more college. There is no more second chance. There is no ever again putting the Virginia Tech jersey on. So it's all or nothing now. And my name is not being called. My heart began to drop. I'm getting emotional. End of the draft come. My name wasn't called. John Thompson and Rick Majerus. I still remember it like it was yesterday. I think the day was June 22nd, 1997. I think that was the date.
And isn't that crazy? Isn't that when isn't that your wedding anniversary?
Yes, it is.
It's same as mine. That's me and my wife.
Exactly. Yes, exactly.
When you said that, yeah, that's crazy. Yeah.
1997. And John Thompson and Rick Majerus said, now that concludes the 1997 NBA draft. Thanks for tuning in. Good night. I remember it like it was yesterday. And my name wasn't called. I get up and I go in my bedroom. Mind you, I got a house full of people. And I'm in full tears. I don't want to be bothered or talk to anyone about it. Then my agent called and said that the Lakers was on the phone. They wanted to speak with me. I'm like, I don't want to talk to them. They didn't call me during the draft. Why I'm going to talk to them now? He was like, this is the opportunity. If you're being drafted in the second round, sometimes it's better not to get drafted because you can go to the team of your choice.
Yeah.
And try out for that team during the summertime. So I ended up joining the summer team with the Lakers, playing in the summer league out in it was in Long Beach. Yeah. And I got a chance to play with Kobe Bryant and all those guys because it was the year after his rookie year. So, and I played extremely well. Then I played in another summer league with Golden State Warriors that same summer in Utah. And both times I played extremely well against the Dallas Mavericks. And they ended up inviting me to vet camp. I went to vet camp and I was playing extremely well in vet camp. I mean, I was really holding my own and doing everything the team needed me to do. And then we was playing against the Phoenix Suns, and I was running down the court. Clifford Robinson was guarding me. I went to receive a pass from Robert Pack, and I blew my knee out.
Oh.
So I'm laying on the floor. When the doctor came out to the floor, he grabbed my hand. He said, "What happened?" I said, "I just tore my ACL."
He asked you?
He asked me what happened with the injury.
Okay,
And
I
I
got
told him I just tore my ACL, because when I went to the floor, it was the same exact feeling I had my freshman year.
Oh.
And I knew that feeling. So by the time I hit the floor, I knew my ACL was torn. I went in the locker room, and Don Nelson came in the locker room and told me, "Don't even worry about it." He was impressed, and he was going to sign me for the rest of the year.
Wow. But
So
it was still tough though, wasn't it?
yes, it was extremely tough, because now I'm on IR. And, that night, my mom and I prayed, and I asked the Lord to find the NBA team for me. I just need to be on someone's bench to prove myself. And that year, I got a chance to sit on the bench the entire year with the Dallas Mavericks and rehab and try to get better. And then fast forward, and the next year, the lockout came. The NBA lockout came. So it kind of stunted me a little bit and hurt me as far as making the team the following year. I went to the CBA, then I played in the ABA, and then the remaining 12 years, I stayed overseas and played overseas in various countries. I mean, I got a lot of passport stamps, a lot of stamps on my passport from overseas.
You know what, Ace? Let me say this, and this is your legacy spotlight. And you and I have talked and hung out at different spring games and Virginia Tech Black alumni, my birthday party. But it's more social. But I'll say this about your career, hearing it in your legacy spotlight, and also following it a few years behind you as a student athlete myself. You know, we all have our issues and challenges, man. But if you take a step back, man, and reflect, your career was remarkable. Um, you're in the moment, you don't realize it, man. But even the moments you had overseas and to play in the NBA Summer League and to be on the bench, and there's a lot of what ifs. I'm sure that lockout didn't happen. Knowing your passion, your motor, I think things would have been different. But at the same time, that gives you perspective now as a coach, and different things you do around the game of basketball at Virginia Tech, and even when you were at the Maryland Eastern Shore coaching and recruiting, you can help these young guys because you and I talked to Troy Mans about this and other friends of mine who coach basketball. These young men who aspire to be just like you may not have the perspective or insight on what it takes, and maybe what you prayed for God gave you, but you still haven't finished fulfilling that prophecy he has for you. You know what I mean? Does that make sense?
Exactly. Yes, for sure. Makes sense. And, I try to be straight up with my players. I try to be honest as I can. They ask me a question about my career, my shortcomings, some of my successes, and I tell them. I don't try to change the narrative to make it fit and make me look good. I tell them straight up, if I had done this, this would have happened.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell them all the time, no matter what I did on the court in college or in high school, I should have did more. I should have put more time in to work on my craft, to expand my game, to work on my ball handling and my shooting. That's why I wasn't in the NBA as long as I would like to have been. So once I got overseas, I had to change my game, because when you're playing overseas, they need you to do multiple things. You just can't rebound. You just can't shoot. You just can't defend. You got to do everything as an import player.
Mm-hmm.
They expect you to do every single thing. Defend, score, rebound, assist, and everything, and keep the team together. And when I got overseas, I wouldn't leave the gym in Japan until I made 100 threes every single day.
Wow.
Dead tired, I would lay on the floor until I recover. I will make 100 threes before I go home. That's how I expanded my game. And I tell guys now, don't be like me and wait until after your career in college is over to be your best version. Don't leave it or chance it in somebody else's hand. Do all you can so you won't have any regrets. So that's my regret, that I didn't put more time in to hone down my skill set for the next level.
Yeah, and I hope those men are listening to you, because you can't. That's priceless advice and feedback. And I have a son and two daughters, and they're all athletes, and I have the same kind of conversations about never taking a day for granted, man. And with that being said, you're now in that position of leadership, and you're around these new age players, man. And you were at an HBCU before now arriving at Virginia Tech, your alma mater. And I was one of the first people to post and tweet about how you got that position, which I'm so happy about, man. And I know God has some great things in store for you. This is the beginning, but you're around a great coach who I'm a big fan of. I love Mike Young. I love how he eats the popcorn before games. I love how the kids play for him. What is it like now? You talk about that moment you and your mom prayed, and now all of a sudden everything comes full circle. And I've seen you at high school games recruiting, and I remember seeing you at those games in Richmond looking at, Trinity and all those different prospects that were playing in those Christmas tournaments. And you always, like you as a player, you were working hard recruiting, and you had your phone out and you were like, yeah, this kid right here. And just love talking to you, and your eyes light up when you talk about basketball. Now you're back where it all started, post Eastern Shore, man. So you talked about your position, but what is it like being on that staff, and what do you see, what's your privilege to say about the basketball program? What do you see happening in Blacksburg when it comes to the basketball program?
First rewinding a little bit, 2012, when I walked away from the game, I retired in April of 2012. When the horn went off when I was in Japan, I knew that was it. They told me to play the game as long as you could until your wheels fell off. And when that horn went off, I felt my wheels had fell off because my body was in pain. My body was in pain, and I cried. And I tried to hold my tears. I didn't even go shake hands with the other team. I just sit on the bench because I knew that was it. Fast forward, I said I wanted to get into college coaching. I thought it was going to be a smooth transition. I thought I could get home, make a couple phone calls. Bam, that's it. I'm on somebody.
Nah.
I paid my way to go down to the Final Four down in Atlanta. Tried to network, and everybody like, Ace, where have you been? What have you been doing? We didn't know what happened to you. I'm like, man, I was overseas. I just retired. I'm trying to get into coaching. Okay, I'm gonna give you a call. I'm emailing, calling, texting. I'm not hearing anything. Lonnie Blow at Virginia State gave me my first opportunity to get into coaching. He gave me the chance to go to Virginia State. But right before Lonnie gave me the chance, I was over at Christopher Newport, and I was helping out over there, and he gave me a chance to be on staff as a part-time as well. And I was only there for a week, but then when Lonnie gave me the chance, I felt like, okay, I'm gonna go to Division II and I'm gonna be at Virginia State with Lonnie. I knew Lonnie already prior. We had a prior relationship. I was learning under Lonnie, then had a chance to go under Bobby Collins to the University of Maryland Eastern Shore to learn under him and Coach Clifford Reed. And I still tried to continue to make contacts. And I always wanted to be at Virginia Tech. I mean, it was always a dream of mine. I wanted to come back and give to the university that gave so much to me. It gave me the opportunity to come here to grow from a little young man from Eastern Shore to come here and grow and become a man when I left. Gave me the chance to meet my wife here on campus. And I wanted to come back to my university and be a part of that growth and continued growth. And I continued to reach out to coaches. And when Coach Young got the job last year, I gave him a call. I had met him. We had played against him when he was at Wofford and I was at UMES. I reached out and, we had long conversations over the phone, numerous conversations. And he told me, he had some coaches already in mind, but if there was anything he could do for me, then he would reach back out to me. He reached out to me and asked me if I still want to be a part of his staff. And I came last year and I was coordinator of basketball relations. And he treated me as one of the guys, treated me as one of the assistant coaches. Blacksburg welcomed me back. The team welcomed me. The staff welcomed me. And I enjoyed it ever since returning back to Blacksburg.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love hearing about it. I love seeing you back in Blacksburg. Um, you know, I'll say this, you're not saying it, so I can say it. Buzz, great coach. Mike Young, great coach, and still has some great things in store. I'm happy to see a coach like Mike Young compared to who was there before Buzz, who ostracized the alumni. And I'm not talking about Buzz. I'm not talking about Mike Young. You know what I'm talking about. He works on the ESPN. And I've always said this with the football, basketball, women's basketball, track, any successful pro. You look at Duke basketball, look who's beside Coach K. You better have people who helped build it beside you because they can remind you of what it takes. And I'm just glad to see someone like yourself who worked and earned it back in it. That's Dwight Vick speaking. That's not even.
And it's so many similarities, man, that you say. It's so many similarities between Coach Young and Frank Beamer.
Yep.
Coach Young is from Radford, Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
He went to Radford High School. He's a local.
Yep.
I mean, he's Southwest Virginia all day. And this is where he really wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
And he enjoyed Blacksburg. He enjoyed the fans, the alums, and he welcomes everyone back. I mean, he always asks me about past players. I want to reach out to this player. You got this player's number, because he want to get them involved into the program. And last year, he had me over the alumni reunion. He told me to get as many alumni back on campus so he can meet and greet them and welcome them back to Blacksburg. So that's what we did last year. And we're going to continue to do that, to have the alum back here on campus, because the young players now need to see some of the players that played before them.
Yeah, yeah. And you are the fourth or fifth person, not just I've had on this show, but people I've talked to who make the comparison between Mike Young and Coach Beamer. So for the basketball fans watching this, Virginia Tech fans, that's great signs for the Virginia Tech basketball program.
And they're very close too. You see them on campus. John Boleyn, Frank Beamer, and Mike Young walk all the time during lunchtime or different times of the day. They get out and walk around campus. I mean, just to see them out walking the campus, and I would love just to be on that shoulder to soak up some of that knowledge that they're speaking.
Especially with John Boleyn there. That's my guy. I know he probably.
Yeah, that's my guy too.
He'll probably talking trash.
All the time.
Yeah, but Ace, I got a few more questions, man. This has been real fun and insightful, but I do want to ask you about something because you're a proud family man, and you and I have, a friendship, but at the same time, you mentioned the ups and downs you went through with injuries, the learning process from going from a boy to a man and going overseas. You've always had your mom to have your back, but you also have a wife, man, who's also from the 7-5. Talk about what she means to you and how she's had your back and just how y'all grown together. Because I think it's important, man, because I'll be the first one to tell anybody I am successful because I have a great wife and great parents, and my support system, she holds it down. She allows me to do so much because she holds the family down. And like your wife, she was there at Tech and she saw what I went through and what I didn't get accomplished and what I learned from on draft day and different things. Just talk a little bit about what she means to you and how she was there through it all.
Like she's an extension of my mother. And so much so that both of them have the same exact birthday, December 18th. They share the same birthday. I met her here on campus in accounting class, and we started dating in college. And she has been my rock ever since. In this business of coaching and traveling in sports, you have to have someone on your side that supports you beyond anything measurable. Because I know when I leave that my family, my kids, and everything is in good hands.
And let's say her name for everybody watching. I'm sorry.
Denidra, my fault.
Yeah, I should have said that too.
Denidra Custis.
Yep.
And she's a Bethel Bruin. I know you didn't want to really hear that part.
No, I won't. I didn't notice. I didn't ask you about that. That's why I got my red and white on.
She's from Hampton.
Yeah.
So I gotta show her love in Bethel Bruin. She played in she was a trainer. With Allen Iverson and all them.
Yeah,
so she was always around sports. But when we got here to college, she never really been to a basketball game before until I invited her to her first game. She had never been in Castle Coliseum. And when I met her in class, she didn't know who I was. And I was excited about that because she was beginning to like me for who I was at that time. And then I really knew she was the one when I was over in Lebanon. And I told her to come and visit me, but her dad really didn't want her to come. And she's a daddy's girl. And she said, Dad, I'm going to visit Ace. And he really opposed. She got on the plane. And when she got on the plane, I said, that's the one. As soon as I returned back to the States, I went out to lunch with her mom and asked for that permission to marry their daughter.
Awesome. Awesome, man. And you got a winner, man. And you guys have been together a long time, man. And I asked that question because, you know, when you have jobs like preacher or a coach or you're a director, you know, you have a partner like the woman you have and men similar to yourself, it's a demanding position. And you need to have someone beside you that can hold you down and push you up and challenge you and fight with you and tell you about yourself, but also love you and support you. And you definitely have that. She's always been a real one. Every time I see her, love everything about it except that Bruin stuff. But you know, all jokes
She's a
aside,
Bruin
man,
for life too.
yeah, no
She's
doubt.
gonna let you know I'm Bruin.
Yeah, and I'm a crabber, but you know, on another note, Ace, you know, this has been a great interview, very insightful. We come to the part of the show where I let you, the guest, give your final thoughts, and I want your final thoughts to touch on, you know, I have a son who is in love with the game the same way you are. And I coach kids in football and basketball. I mentor kids, counsel young men and women who are aspiring to be eventually a coach like yourself. And also they want to play at the collegiate level, D1, D2, and they want to go beyond maybe the G League or the NBA. You talked about your shortcomings and your life lessons and what you should have done, your regrets you learned. What advice and feedback do you have for people when they're dealing with adversity and what they should do for those up and coming ace customers, for those young men and women who want to be successful, not just in sports, but in life? What are some values and some things they should live by to get to where you are and beyond? What advice do you have for them?
I always tell my kids, first off, respect. Respect someone's time, someone's energy, and someone believing and loving in you. Because if somebody take the time out to tell you or teach you something, you need to listen because it's for you as to become a better person, first and foremost. Then I tell them about passion.
Hmm.
Don't waste, it goes back to the time. Don't waste anyone's time if you're not really passionate about it. You know deep down inside what you want to be, what you want to do. And there's a sacrifice in everything that you want to do in life. Are you going to sacrifice being on your PlayStation or your Xbox? Are you going to sacrifice, if you want to be a basketball player, are you going to sacrifice that to go to the gym and work on your skill set to become a better you? And I don't sugarcoat anything with my kids. I tell them the truth because I don't want them to hear it anywhere else. And I don't want them to feel like they're spoon fed about anything. I want them to learn that it takes hard work. It takes people trying to bring you down, and you got to have the strength within to lift up yourself because I'm going to be here for you. But you got to be able to dig down inside and have that strength and power and will to continue on and become better. So I always tell parents all the time, in AAU, sometimes AAU kind of ruins players because they tell them how great you are. In high school, sometimes they tell you how great you are. They tell you that you are the next LeBron James, but they don't tell you what LeBron James did to become LeBron James. Not only genetics. You can't be 5'8" trying to be Shaquille O'Neal. You have to be your best version of yourself and stay within your reason, stay within your beliefs, and continue to work hard and try to become the best you. That's all I tell my kids, and that's all I tell parents all the time.
I love it, man. I love it. And I love this interview and I appreciate your wise words. And I know other people watching will appreciate it as well. Ace, this has been great, man. This has been a long time coming. I'm so glad I was able to track you down and it's been an honor to have you on. Much blessings to you and your family. And, you know, Lord willing, as COVID-19 gets contained, you guys can have a great season. I'll be watching. And again, I know this is only the beginning for you, man. And I just appreciate you being on here, man. This has been really good. It's been cool also to hear your journey because even though you and I are friends and you think you know somebody's story, then you hear all the different things you've overcome, the pitfalls, the adversity, success. And it's just been refreshing to hear, despite all the great things, you remain humble. So thank you.
Man, I appreciate you, Vic, man. Anytime, man, I continue to watch you, man. Keep going, doing big things out there. And I'm always a fan of yours as well.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ace. I appreciate it, man. And like I say every episode to all the Victory Life supporters, all the Ace Custis fans and supporters, thank you for everything you do in supporting Victory Life and Ace Custis family and friends. And every episode also reminds you, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you have a great impact and you leave a great legacy. Thank you.